What is going on, Fortnite fam? Welcome to the Drop Spot, the first official Fortnite talk show. How they've given me so much power to do all the things they said, and I quote from this email: Zeke has all the power he can do and say whatever he wants. Does not say that at all. How's it going, everybody? It's great to be here with all of you. We're hanging out. This is going to be something really cool, really special. We're going to be talking about all things Fortnite competitive, kind of like all encompassing. So many things to discuss, but why don't we get some friends in here to help us talk about these topics? It's none other than Levin2K and Vivid, who will be hanging out with us to talk all things Fortnite, my friends. Welcome to the Drop Spot.
Hey, it's good to be here, man. I'm really glad it's not a show where, you can just have all the power. I don't think that's something people really want to watch. But I'm sure people would love to watch me and Vivido talk about some Fortnite. So good to be here.
Yeah, of course. That's why me and Levin are here to carry Zeke through the show because, like Levin mentioned, a little bit too much power in Zeke's hands. Who knows what will happen?
Yep, you guys carry me just like you do in zero build squads. And
True.
I now have 2 victories
It's
to my
happened.
name. You're welcome. It has happened indeed. Well, gentlemen, we've got quite the little show here lined up for all of our listeners, wherever they're at. We got a couple things to talk about. First, we got to talk about, of course, NA Central. What? That's right. NA East, NA West combining to become NA Central. We'll talk about the 2023 roadmap. And for some of you guys who are familiar with this, but for those that maybe haven't had a chance to catch up with Fortnite, we got you guys covered. We're also going to be taking a little bit of a focus in the FNCS. We'll talk about weeks 1 and 2 and highlight a player, maybe 2. We'll see. And then, of course, we've got reality augments, how they have redefined Fortnite, how they've really changed the landscape and really changed how people kind of approach playing Fortnite. And then we'll kind of round out. We got Streamer Bowl, Tfue Zero Build tournaments, and of course, creative. Why don't we get this popping? NA Central, Levin, you wake up, you're like, oh, wow, it's crazy. What a dream. I had a dream where I was carrying Zeke once again in Fortnite. You open your phone, you're like, oh, wow, what's this notification? NA Central. Huh, crazy. What were your initial thoughts when you caught that?
Initial thoughts, I thought they made a whole new region and it's still not better than EU. I can't believe it. I just can't believe I'm playing. Look, NA Central, I'm super excited about it. I'm really, really excited about the prospect of it because the truth is, NA East versus NA West, like that mini rivalry, it's something that I think has been everlasting. And although I'm sure each region will be proud of themselves from different regions or different reasons, sorry, I think the prospect of them combining is so exciting, right? There's so much talent in NA West that I feel like have never really gotten a chance to really show what they can do and shine the way they truly can. Now paired with some of the knowledge and the tactics that we see in NA East, it's going to be so exciting to watch NA Central.
Yeah, I've been representing NA East myself now for a very long time, and like Levin mentioned, that mini rivalry has always been there, but it's kind of always been overshadowed by just like EU versus NA. But then, of course, now that it's actually a combined region, we can actually say EU versus NA because it is going to be that NA Central server. But like Levin also mentioned, the combining of the two regions it just expands the amount of players that we're going to have, expands the play styles, kind of combines the two. And I'm excited to see kind of the powerhouse that is actually built from all of these players coming together.
That's a beautiful segue, David. Beautiful segue. Because, I mean, this is crazy. This is going to be quite the shakeup, right? There's a bunch of players that are probably going to have to find new homes. When you kind of think about these duos kind of coming together and now they're thinking, okay, wait, I can now play with this other, my friends from the other side of the coast. All right. So what does that mean now, right? Like, I mean, do you guys think with this change, so we have to mix NA East, NA West playstyles really quick. Do you guys think we're going to see maybe some fallout from the great combining?
Maybe fallout is on the word. I think there's just.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
I think it's just. There's no word. Growing pains definitely, right? Because there will be an adjustment period where you're gonna watch NA Central and you're gonna be like, I can see the NA West teams in the lobby and I can see the NA East teams. You're still gonna be able to see them for a while and like differentiate between that. But I'm sure Vivid, you'll agree because you've competed in NA East. When you look at the West players, crazy talent, right?
100%.
West has always been about creative and box fighting and crazy mechanics, right? And East was always more we're going to learn how to play the game the right way and, make sure we have all the strategy, all the tactics, right? And so, in theory, you combine that, And how could that not be like an amazing thing to watch over time?
Yeah, I mean, just like straight up, the NA West players typically have been known for, dedicating a lot more time to creative and like zone wars against each other and everything like that. So whenever you play them in those aspects, they're absolutely insane. And then that time that they were kind of spending there, the NA East players usually ran like scrims and developed those fundamentals, which is why typically on like a bigger stage, international stage, and everything like that, we do see EU and NA East perform a little bit better than pretty much any of the minor regions, just simply because of scrims and how the time is being dedicated. But now that the player pool is being combined, any of those NA West players should have a big enough player pool. Those scrims will be running for NA Central now, and those players that are really, really good mechanically can kind of develop those fundamentals. But then also NA East players, maybe some of them were kind of like slacking when it came to grinding out creative. Well, now here's this whole new player pool that you can kind of grind with and develop your mechanics as well. So all in all now, because it's just going to better the play style for literally everybody.
Yeah, so it's a little give and take, right? Like, hey, you guys have had this, I want some of that, but you can have this in return. And they're like, oh, all right, yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, you can have that strategy, and we'll take this one. I mean, that's pretty exciting stuff. Do you guys feel like with the great combining, NA Central taking Rise, do you guys feel like there's like maybe like a superstar that you guys are looking at that is probably gonna be making some waves?
Yeah. Yep.
Epic world.
Waves.
Just epic world, yeah. Major like tsunami type waves. Epic world, yeah.
Yeah, the Epic Whale, pretty household name over in NA West. I mean, if you guys had to say like, okay, maybe is there one duo that you guys are looking at maybe to see him pair up with? You guys think he is a jack of all trades? It don't matter. He's just gonna he's gonna take whoever he's with, and they're gonna do great.
Yeah, well, I don't know about an exact duo per se, right?
Okay,
but I know for a fact that this morning when the news dropped, like his DMs were going crazy,
flooded,
right? Like 100, because this is a player who, like, for the longest time, people have been saying, "Yo, please come to NA East, man. We want to see him." Even EU, they're saying in EU, people have been saying they'll come to EU. So I know for a fact people want to like play with Epic.
Not sure about you guys, but I myself actually sent him a DM, just checking, like, yo, like, NA Central, you want to run it back, or like, what's going on? He hasn't responded, so.
I don't think he will anytime soon, mate.
I don't think he will either.
He just has so many to go through. It's like I'll get to Vivid eventually, but like I have to get through this deluge of DMs before I can see that one. That's good though. I'm very excited to see NA Central. I think we kind of, to a point you made, Vivid, we can finally see EU versus NA. We actually get that, right? Because in the past, like, yeah, well, EU, NA, it's like, NA West is, it's like, okay, now we're getting into like semantics. Now there is just EU versus NA, and like later down the line, when we get to the global championship, then it becomes the ultimate test. Then that's the true, like, okay, it's time to finally decide which one is better.
Yeah,
it'll be NA.
The thing is. All right, keep thinking that, buddy. Look, you know what I think about in terms of like the immediate future. What I'm really excited about is obviously we got to see this season play out, but the roster mania almost, right? I think one of my favorite things about NA East was always like whenever the snaking ends would happen, right? Where like you get all the different top teams just start splitting with each other, right? And they're like, I want to play with you, and like everything just switches up. And the reality is, with a lot of the NA West, like top players now being integrated into that talent pool, like there's potential for like a massive snaking in to happen like midway through this year. And obviously that's going to affect things going into globals, right? In terms of like what actual NA teams are we going to see at that competition? So yeah, lots of fun to be had when it comes to this like combination.
Yeah, I love the fact you mentioned that as well, because with that post, we kind of saw that there, the FNCS is still going to play out with both of the respective regions, but we're about halfway through this FNCS right now, of course. And, Levin's talking about, oh, well, now this bigger player pool has been expanded. And you might start thinking about, oh, okay, well, who do I want my teammate to be? Do I want it to be somebody from NA West? Do I want it to be somebody from NA East, this next major? Well, you still got to play the rest of this FNCS out with your respective duo that you're currently competing with. So it can kind of, play a mental game on a lot of these players. Like, oh, am I even going to be playing with my duo next major? Like, do I really want to stick this out? Do I even like care about this? So the mental test when it actually comes to the competitiveness of playing the rest of this out, it's kind of crazy.
if you're and as good as Reed is as a player, right, top player, and I'm sure he'll be in high demand, right? If you're playing this like major final, thinking I better play my best, like I might not play with Epic World next season. Do you know what I mean? And so I'm sure there'll be players who are thinking like, yo, if I want to play with you throughout the year, let me make sure I put in my best, because otherwise there will just be potential for people to say, hey, no, I want to play with you, want to play with you. And obviously we like highlight Epic World because I think he is just such like a massive name in NOS, but again, so many talented NOS players who now like just have better options, right? Likes of Reed, Snacky, Fabs, all these guys, like they're gonna have plenty of options.
I think I believe it was Taco and both Jenny who kind of like hinted at different times on the FNCS broadcast. But like this idea of swapping from major to major, like teammates. And I feel like it's almost like a double-edged sword, right? Let's say like Epic Will and Reed very easily could just say like, oh yeah, let's just change it up. Let's go find ourselves other duo mates and like explore other waters. But what if in doing that, it's actually hurting them, right? Like, sure, they could go get experience. They could go play with their people. Maybe they do well, but maybe they're missing that element, right? Like that spark, if you will, that actually helps them be great. Maybe they, we see Epic Well and like suddenly he's not doing well. And it's because it's like, well, he's played with Reed for so long. They've developed this chemistry, this almost like they are almost a hive mind. They think exactly the same. And in experimenting and trying to say like, okay, let me go try and duo up with this guy or this person, it hurts them. Do you think that's possible?
Let me tell you something, Zeke. Let me school you here. Yeah, so take out your notepad, right? Get your pen.
All right, I got it.
Ready.
All right,
and listen to me when I speak, okay?
Yeah.
Epic Well last year went to a LAN event, right? Game of 8, and he played with someone he had never ever played before in Malabuka. He played with a player whose first language isn't even actually English. And he just won the event against some of the best players from EU and NA East. So look, sure, chemistry is always going to be a big thing. And I think we've seen duos like the likes of Seti and Cammy who like have shown stick together for the long haul and you'll win everything, right? Like that is definitely something that is possible. But when you are elite, which is what, the likes of Epic are, whoever you play with, you're going to find success. Like you will just, it will click, right? So I don't know if those guys will worry about that. Some players might, but I think for him, it's like, best player I can play with, and he try to play with it.
Yeah, and I mean, I can tell you from experience, I personally, when I was playing, I was always a fan of, sticking together, and I always would take like about halfway through really find that click actually happened. So for me, I was always like, you know what? I like the teams that are going to stick together, and watching FNCS after FNCS, I kind of had that sentiment. But lately, I feel like I myself have kind of changed that sentiment. I mean, even Peterbot and Booga, right, coming out, this is their debut season. They didn't really grind all that much, honestly, and instantly they're like the best NA East duo. So I feel like for some people that click can kind of just happen instantly, and whatever duo that kind of happens with is actually really, really beneficial because you're bringing in the experience from an old duo, from two old duos essentially, and combining them into one. So it can work out really, really well.
I like this. We'll have to see, man. Major 2 is going to be crazy. I am very excited. Let's talk about Major 2 and kind of, what the competitive mode roadmap looks like in 2023. If you've not had a chance to catch up with Fortnite, that's okay. We got you covered. So no longer is it just an FNCS self-contained, right? There's actually 3. They're now called majors. There is a last chance major, and all 4 of these events will lead us into a global championship that happens later this year. So now it's not only, hey, what do I need to do to win this one FNCS contained major? Now it's like a cumulative thing, right? If I come in first place with my duo, I'm going straight to global championships, baby. I'm punching that ticket. I'll see you then. But that doesn't always happen for everyone, right? So I was kind of curious to kind of get your guys' thoughts on the format as it is now. How you feel like it's kind of like shaping up currently.
I like it. I like it in the sense of like, there's the continuity aspect to it throughout the whole year, which is like great. Yeah. I feel like it was always great when we had FNCSs and people win, and it's like in that moment, you are like the best player in that season. You win the money, of course. The actual like accolades and the praise you get from everybody. But now it's like there's more than that. Now you're playing for all of that, and you're playing for a spot in the biggest event of the year. That is very exciting, and I think after how Invitational went in 2022. Every single competitive player, every single Fortnite player, even if you haven't started playing competitive yet, like you're thinking, what can I do to be there, right? Because, you just don't want to miss that event. So it just means so much more. And like I feel like you can see that from like how hard the players work.
Yeah, the grind is on, right? All of the information is laid out. It's very, very clear. This is what the year is going to look like. So there really are no excuses for any of these players. And of course, all of this information being released about this competitive year happening right after the Invitational, where there were players that were there that enjoyed it so much that they want to feel that again, right? Or maybe players that missed out, just barely didn't get first place, anything like that, feel like they could have done better at that event. They want to return and kind of redeem themselves and stuff like that. People want to defend how well they did at the global championship. And then, of course, just any player that didn't unfortunately actually make it to the Invitational, had to watch from home, or maybe was like a backup player there, all kind of got to enjoy it from the sidelines and really see how good of an event these international ones can be. It's all on the line. It's all laid out. So they're really, like I said before, there are no excuses, and you really got to want it. So every single major just means so much.
Yeah, it is just like, there's a lot more pressure too when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you could just, do well and you win, awesome, or you could just not do well and you think, okay, well, I got to make some adjustments. But now you're like, oh, I can make those adjustments, but I have a little bit of a time limit. There is like a little bit of a window here in Majors 2, Majors 3, and then if I have to go to Last Chance, that's not where I want to be. That window is mad small.
That's gonna
mad
be fun,
small.
though.
It's going to be really fun. It's going to be really, really fun because, again, it's like just the pressure, the intensity in that moment. Like, I already know, like, players have the mindset when picking their teammates of like, I like playing with you, but can I see myself getting to globals with you, right? And that now is just like, that opens up like a whole like whirlpool of just like possibilities, and just, it is going to be a very fun year of competitive.
Yeah. I mean, looking forward to it. I mean, Major 1 itself has already been so fun, right? And we've only watched a couple of the weeks so far, so I'm excited to see how this one plays out, and then, of course, the entire year.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, let's talk about FNCS, right? We've had weeks 1, weeks 2, they're done. I kind of wanted to see how, so obviously, like, Levin, you're typically EU, but you've been hanging out in NA, and Vivid, the same thing. You're NA, but you've been hanging out in EU for these broadcasts. So I wanted to kind of get your guys' thoughts on your respective region, how you guys are kind of like feeling things out right now, and then how could we see some things change going into week number 3?
Zeke, after my first NA show, I instantly went to social media and I said, I put my hands up. I put my hands up.
Right.
NA rocked my world. I was not
right.
expecting, to have so much fun commentating it and just watching it, like enjoying it as a viewer. So much talent there, and I think that's never been a doubt. Like, regardless of where you stand on EU versus NA, like, obviously there's talent everywhere, but there were just so many crazy moments. And of course, this season we have a lot of that, right, with the way hammers work and augments work and all of this and that. But I had a blast watching NA, and of course EU. But I try not to talk too much about EU. You haven't noticed, but yeah, NA was a lot of fun for me to do for first time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I had a lot more fun watching NA East, and that's just because I feel like after watching EU and really, really paying attention for kind of like the first time, I feel like EU actually has so much respect for the people that they are playing against that sometimes it feels like they're a little timid or a little scared to make a lot of plays. Whereas NA East, I feel like there's just like plays constantly being made. And then, of course, what that kind of leads to in NA East is there's a lot more mistakes that actually happen, right? Because you are going for those plays and maybe it wasn't the most well thought out plan, or, NA East is still trying to kind of recover from the fact that there's no real like height personality or people that like to continuously go for height or play certain play styles. I mean, even still, there's also like the scented thing that kind of happened where he's no longer really competing at the highest level. We're not really putting as much time into it. So now there's kind of this opening on low ground. So there's a lot of room for plays to be made. Whereas like EU, I feel like everybody just has so much respect for everybody that plays are almost like frowned upon, I feel like, after I've watched some of those games.
Okay, interesting. Okay. That kind of brings me something like I kind of want to pick your guys' brain about. And we actually talked a little bit about it on the broadcast this last weekend. So NA East feels like a lot more familiar names are like in the spotlight right now, right? They're doing well. They're putting up numbers. They're in that top 10. EU, I feel like, and please, I'm not trying to say that like people in EU aren't good, or there's just a lot of players in EU, and there's a lot of players that we have seen but haven't had that opportunity to break into the spotlight yet. And we're finally getting the opportunity to see some of those players really like shine. And in weeks 1 and 2, it felt like a lot more of those players had those opportunities, right? There wasn't those names we're kind of used to seeing in EU really putting up numbers. So, like, why do you guys feel like in EU specifically, uh, you know, for some reason, those big names just didn't put up?
I'll disagree. I really disagree. I think in week one, it felt like that. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
week one, certainly, it was like, whoa, where are all the big dogs? But week two, so we had a bunch of our top names doing really well, as well with, a bunch of like newer names, right? I think
Yeah.
when you look at how qualifiers have gone historically in EU and I compare it, I think it's very similar, right? It's never, we have a bunch of teams who, as good as they are, take some time to ramp up over the course of the season. But when it comes to final,
Yeah.
right, things switch on. Even if you look at, those last show we had week two, Queasy in the interview at the end literally said, look, we're saving strats and saving things for finals. So I don't think you can ever watch like an EU qualifier week and like expect to see the best of the best Fortnite ever be played, just because a lot of those players are like, we know we're going to make it to finals, so let's save our best stuff for that
Mm-hmm.
final, right? And so that's why there's always potential for you to see maybe names you're not as familiar with doing really, really well. I wouldn't say that's necessarily just because like those players aren't showing up. I feel like it's just one of those things that you notice throughout you when you're covering it for so long.
Like 11 2K, no big deal.
Yeah.
I
I'm
did
used to it
think,
now.
yeah, of course. Really quick before I get to Vivid's thoughts. I mean, we did talk to Queasy on the show, right? And he literally said, "There, we have some strategies. We're saving those for a little bit later." So that's a pretty fair point. I vibe with it, Levin. What do you think, Vivid?
Yeah, that's like, I don't want to say that it's like hilarious, but I kind of realized that was like a thing amongst EU players, because I feel like, of course, when I last played, I wasn't necessarily at the top of my game when I retired and everything like that. For
Bit of
sure.
an understatement, if you ask me, but
Yeah. All right. Listen, I'll get to my point now. Thanks, Levin. I never really heard about like people like saving strats, or like kind of like everything was always experimented with in scrims and kind of established and kind of shown whenever I was like scrimming really, really hard on the NAE's region. But all the time, the EU players, they just always have things that you just keep from everybody else. And over the years, it's like, oh yeah, we've known about this for like 2 years. I guess we'll let the community know now and stuff like that. So EU is really a scary region, and one that is hard to look at, like Leva mentioned, throughout the weeks and just be like, oh well, like they're not playing at their best. Well, are they even using everything that they have? And it's like this back and forth thing that you always have to think about when watching EU. And I'm kind of realizing that the more and more I get into it, like Levin's been involved with it so long, so he's always aware of that. And he's like, they're fine. They've got plan D, C, D, Z, everything. And I'm watching NAE, so I'm like, yeah, like plays are trying to be made right now. But that's it, right? I guess like we're out of plans now. So
Okay. Let's go to NA East then. I mean, Casker, Clarity G showed up, utilizing that mythical pistol, just laying waste to everybody, just absolutely dominated the lobby. And yet over in EU, we actually didn't see as many people utilizing the mythical pistol. Do you guys feel like that's NA trying to set like kind of the tone that the mythical pistol is the meta and should be the meta? Is that maybe NAE is chasing something that they think is the meta? Because like, why is EU not doing it? What do you think, Levin?
I think a lot of it comes down to like just purely just being unlucky with augments, right? I think the way it works a lot of the time now is that you'll get like players who, they obviously get that new sort of mythical munition augment, right? Where it's like you get that pistol and it's like it's absolutely crazy. If you have the option to use it, I think most of the time you're going to use it. But the thing is, players obviously want to deal with Storm Surge and all these other complicated aspects of the game, and so in like the early and mid game, you might not want to go for it. And so if you don't like have that augment and you can't like sort of hold it and save it, you just won't ever use the pistol. Whereas if you do have the option to sort of save it, then you will. And I think that's why we're seeing players use it. I do expect to see it be used a lot more throughout the season because yeah, we saw some crazy stuff happening with that pistol. Like it was actually insane how like effective it was in a lot of these end games, and I think a lot of the big pop off games we had where people were getting like double digit elim games came with people like actually using the pistol. So it will definitely be a bigger part of the season as it goes on.
Yeah, I'll actually kind of counter that, Levin. I think that we'll see it less as we get towards like finals or like grand finals of this major, because the kind of the trend that I was seeing throughout both regions, really, even though we did of course see less of it be used on EU, there's still kind of follow this trend where the first like 2-3 games, I feel like we primarily saw the red eye on every single team, but then as the games went on, naturally they actually got more aggressive. So the fact that they're getting more aggressive means that a lot of these teams, you're just going to get a lot closer to other teams individually, and in those types of scenarios, you're gonna want, you don't want that red eye, right? You want something that you can spray, and the pistol isn't necessarily the best weapon in the game for it, right? Like, of course, we have SMGs and stuff like that, but it's actually so good when amplified by augments that it's basically an SMG that you can use up close. So as the games went on, we just saw more and more pistols be used in general. But I'm curious to see if that will actually follow through into finals, right? Because historically, finals are like the least aggressive week that we've ever had, or we always have throughout an FNCS. So a lot more
Yeah.
teams staying away from each other in that regard. I think that we might see a return of the red eye as opposed to the pistol when it comes to the grand finals.
Yeah, I think that it's weird because it's like I hear what you're saying, and there's an element of truth to that where like in finals lobbies, it's like the games are harder, and so Surge is more
Hmm.
difficult, and so like
Hmm.
there is more of an emphasis on having a red eye there. But like I was saying, a lot of the times we were seeing people use the mythical pistol, it was late in the game because they've held on to that augment, so they're holding on to it. So it's like I don't think we're less likely to see people use it later on, unless they're again like struggling with surge. And even in that case, like if you were holding the red eye and it's like later in game and it's like, some of the later game surges, you're like still gonna want the pistol over the red eye because people are so close quarters. So I hear what you're saying. I still think we're just gonna see more of it. I just think it's so strong and so effective.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the kind of abundance of light ammo is the kind of thing for me, because if you think about it, if you're holding, you know, red eye, shotgun, 3 heals, you're not utilizing your light ammo, right? So you could just say like, hey, you can have this or whatever ammo I don't need, right? And so the mythical pistol user is like, oh, sick. I happen to have an augment right here to utilize that. 500 rounds sounds great to me, like I think there's probably still more that will like learn about this in the coming weeks, and like we'll kind of see how the community decides to either say this is the meta or say kind of nah, this ain't gonna be it. We'll see how they look to utilize the mythical pistol. To kind of like talk about the FNCS and kind of remind ourselves the global championship. There are other regions. Obviously, like we talk a lot about NA Central and EU, but there are other regions, right? Is there maybe like a duo or a player that you guys are excited about seeing in the FNCS that come global championship time, we need to have eyes on?
For sure there is. I am a bit of a Fortnite connoisseur, I consider myself.
Just a little bit.
In all of my weekly scouting of the world, I like to check up on my friends down under.
Of course.
And sometimes there's not much going on down under, but this season, Zeke, my oh my, I tell you, the player that is worthy of our spotlighting,
He did it.
is the one and only Worthy. The one and only Worthy himself, man. Oh my, oh my. Look, Worthy is a player who I think is associated with OCE like for the longest time because, back in the day, he was the guy dominating, right? Like if back in the day you looked at an FNCS leaderboard and it was like, it's going to be Worthy on top. 2022 wasn't his best year by any means, and he missed out on the Invitational, and I think that clearly was something that like affected him, and I think since missing out on that, he has just been on like a revenge tour where to start off the major, he has been on fire, man. He's playing with a new duo now, right? He's playing with Daneth, which is obviously different for him, and they are phenomenal. Worthy himself is like been like the elimination leader in all regions, right? So like he's getting the most elims on OCE, like he's getting more than anybody is on EU or NA West or NA East or Brazil. Like he is ridiculous right now, the level he's playing at.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, to boot as well, I mean, I kept seeing stats about him doing actually like the most damage across
Yeah,
all regions in qualifier 1 and qualifier 2 finals. So, I mean, he's
All
just been doing it
regions.
so well. And it's like you can, there's sometimes you can watch some of these smaller regions. And if you kind of like hid the name, I don't think you would be able to tell necessarily that his type of play style and how aware and how well that he's playing, that he would actually be somebody from OCE. So, he's been absolutely doing so well, like Levin mentioned, and I'm excited to see how this major plays out. I'm hoping that he wins it so he does get that global champion spot and we can see him play on the international stage.
yeah, because honestly, it was a shame that he wasn't able to make it. Now, like, there was like some, talented, OC players that went, but like I think it's been so long, and I almost got used to associating Worthy with like being the guy that just wins when it comes to OCE.
Yeah.
So it's good to see him like come back into the year and just like regain that fire within him and just be so on top of it. It's really, really fun to watch right now.
That's so sick. I mean, yeah, I think, yeah, it's obviously with so many regions, there has to be like a focus, right? Because as we kind of week to week, it's like we're just taking one step closer to the global championship. You know what I'm saying? Like it's always going to be like you always have to be looking at these other regions and thinking, okay, are they the ones? Are they the ones going to be on that stage? Is that the one that I'm gonna have to fight? They're going where? That's my POI. Is that what you're gonna do? Okay, well I have to make sure my strategies are like on lock. I need to make sure like there's just so many more factors, right? Like in the past, we would just compete, like I kind of talked about earlier. You'd compete in your own FNCS, your own region. We get the invitational. It's like, whoa, hold on. There's how many regions being represented here? And now we're back to do it again, right? So I think for me, the conversation is always like, how do you adapt in not only to the meta? Because like also, this is like one of the things I love talking about. But there's always like an overarching meta to like a season. But then competition, even week to week, there's like a sub meta. There's a meta within the meta that people are just like, this thing is now very powerful. And if you're not using it, you're playing the game wrong. And even if it's true or not, it is the meta as defined by the players playing, right? So I think that's my big question mark is like, how do we properly set ourselves up for success? When we're thinking, okay, this is week 3. How well did OCE do? How many more points did they score? Okay. Sure, I have to figure out how to deal with that,
Yeah, no, I get you. I think it's one of those ones where like when you are like one of those players in those regions, you have almost more to worry about, right? Because if you're like an EU or NA player, like any central player now, right? If you're an EU or any central player, you almost like you're playing your region and it's fine because you guys almost sort of determine like the meta, especially because like the majority of the players in the lobby will come from those regions.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you're someone on OC, someone on Asia, you're sort of like you can't afford to get too worked up into like the weekly meta of your region, like you were saying, Seek. Like you almost have to think big picture. Like, look, at the end of the day, we want to be playing in global championships. Like we need to play, assuming this is a lobby of that caliber, right? Like let's play how we would play if we were in those games. Because otherwise you end up going to that tournament and you're like, hold on a minute, I am not prepared for this. Like this is way more difficult than I expected, right? So you have to think big picture if you're the likes of Worthy, and I think they are. I think they are from the way they play. I would love to see them bring that flair, that flavor that they bring in OCE when it comes time for international competition. Again, assuming they make it there. I think they can do that. So I really hope they do well this season.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned it there. All eyes are usually on like EU, NA Central when it comes to those international events because they do make up the majority of the players of the lobby. But that leaves you with most of the teams that are going to be coming will do the most amount of research on how those lobbies play out in EU and NA because again that's where most of the players are going to be playing from. So it kind of opens up this door though for some of those minor regions to kind of slip through. Maybe not as much prep work being done on how their play style is going to play out throughout these lobbies. And they come out with some surprising stuff.
Yeah, dude, I'll tell you, I love Fortnite and running these broadcasts and like just getting to just lose our minds, dude. I'm telling you. In case you didn't see me this last week on stage shooting my own pretend pistol on the stage. Don't worry about that. Don't look back to the VOD. Don't do it.
Got a lot of sleep that day.
I got a lot of sleep that day. Yeah, it is so fun. I mean, especially even opportunities to highlight people, right? Like we even got to have Reddish stop by, right, for a little interview.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like about the community at large, right? Not even just focusing in on like Queasy, a competitive player we had an interview with. We also got to highlight a community member, Reddish, which was super, super cool. And, I'm always going to be appreciative of that time. We get to kind of hear from the players, right? Get their perspective and kind of just have a moment with them. Hey, this is really cool. You did something awesome. Congrats. And they're like, just another day in life,
Yeah.
I love it so much. Let's keep the ball rolling, though. I want to talk about augments. Gentlemen, we got to talk about the thing redefining the way we approach Fortnite, augments. So these things are brand new to the game. They showed up with Chapter 4. You get 4 a game. Every 2 minutes, you get it to kind of another one shows up. And then if you're kind of given an option of two augments, A or B, you can, if you have gold, you can say, I want to reroll. I don't like this. I want some other options. We've already seen augments really change very drastically the way players approach Fortnite, right? I've always a fan of putting players onus in their own hands, right? Like allowing them to express themselves in Fortnite, right? How are you guys finding the augments change? Like, do they change the game that much? Is it? Am I overthinking it, or is it like, no, this is pretty substantial?
Nah, it's big, right? And I think, as soon as the chapter started and it was kind of revealed that augments were a thing and how they were going to work and kind of what some of them were going to do, it's like, oh, that's going to be big for the game. But I think now that competition has started, FNCS has started, it's like almost every single moment you can see and watch a team and something about them is being affected by an augment, right? Whether it be they're in a bush that they picked up along the way, or they have like 13 mushrooms. And you're like, well, why in the world do they have 13 mushrooms, right? Of course, they have that harvester augment or the mythic munition. A mythic pistol comes out to play, or this guy has a green pistol right now. Like, why is he holding a green pistol when I'm looking at him right over there? There's a purple red eye, stuff like that. So it's really, really cool that almost every aspect of the game can be looked at and be like, oh, wow, like right now he has this augment.
Yeah, since none of you said it, like, it's just great how they augment the way you can play the game, right?
Like, in reality, yeah, it's awesome.
Oh my gosh. Levin has 2, Vivid has 1. Copy that.
I think augments have been a very big breath of fresh air for the way like the game's going. And I think over the course of the season, obviously, we're seeing some get added in and some change things, right? In terms of just like what there is. The interesting part of that, right, is that I think, going into the major, like, you had sort of an idea, people had an idea of like, hey, like, these are my favorite augments, like, these are the ones that are the best. And like, when more get added in, it almost like decreases your probability of getting the ones you like. So you're almost forced to like have to really venture and explore all the augments, which I think is great because I think like all of them can have like really cool use cases. One of the funny things now is like the change to actual like the price of them, right? It's not 100 gold anymore, it's 200 gold, right? We're seeing a Fortnite inflation, an economical crisis in the world coming into Fortnite. So the price has gone up per se, which is fun. So I'm sure we'll see that like have an effect as well on the way augments work throughout the game. But now the augments have been really, really fun. From comp to like just casual play. Like we have a bunch of fun with them when we're playing our games. So
yeah, I mean, even so, like, you mentioned there are ones that are strong, right? And coming into the is like, oh, these are going to be the ones we're looking out for. Like, I know Forecast, it's like a big one that everybody loves, but even like the ones that you're just like, I'm never picking that, like Party Time, for example, randomly just throws a balloon on your back. We saw in EU Malibuca trying to make a play with Party Time, like it literally happens, and you're just like, oh, that augment's so troll. There's no way anybody's gonna be floating above me with a balloon, and then sure enough, it can be one of those moments that catches everybody off guard. So I just love to see like all those little moments, those funny moments that happen because of the augments kind of changing up the gameplay.
Is there an augment you guys think is good, but maybe like niche, or even just like an augment you guys are excited like to see when it shows up and you're like, I want to use this augment?
If you ask me personally, and like when I'm playing, I do like the Party Time just because like
wow,
like you would.
Yeah, no, because when I'm playing, like I'm usually playing in like a squad, right? So it's like I just sort of like fly all the way up and I'm like just chilling. Do you know what I mean? And like I'm just letting my teammates do anything. When they need me, start pressing control and like letting go the balloons and dropping down. Like so personally, I like Party Time. It almost gives me a breather mid game. In terms of like actually competing and like going for trying to do the best in game, I think one that's been undoubtedly like my favorite is like Danger Hero, man. It is
Hmm.
so effective. Like just in those situations where you think all is lost, right? The game is done. It's in the dirt. Back into the lobby. Danger Hero saves me again, and you're like, I just love it. I'm taking it every time. I'm taking it every time.
What
Yeah,
do
it
you
just
think, Viv?
amplifies the viewing experience, right? Because we've seen so many more clutch moments because of that single augment. That it's just been so exciting to watch all these players kind of pop off in using those augments and pairing so well with them, and being aware that they have them as well.
Yeah, I think one of my funniest moments when we were playing is with Mini Miner. He's like, Icy Slide. I'm curious. Let me see what that's about. And like, Mini, there's a guy on me here in this box, and he just like slides by me. He's like, wait, I don't want this augment.
Oh my gosh.
So not only are they effective, they can also be fun with friends, and that's all that you could ask for when we're playing Fortnite. Let's round this off. We want to talk about Streamer Bowl. We want to talk about Tifu Zero Build Tournament, and kind of like pair that with creative. Creative. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity. We were talking about creative and like how it kind of goes hand in hand with competitive, right? And I think both of these third-party events have like such a good showing of what that looks like, right? Streamer Bowl just wrapped up. Tifu wins. Kurt alongside him. And if you guys miss it, I mean, Tifu just wins everything. He's just such a winner. But yeah, it was like kind of like a King of the Hill type of game mode, right? Over in Twitch Rivals, they had kind of like this capture point. You and your duo just had to get eliminations and sit on the point, and then at the end of the round, you were awarded a bunch of points, and then someone got to win, right? And of course, all for charity. So even a greater showing. But yeah, I feel like it's cool to see what creative has to offer, right? There's so many little things that you can kind of take in creative and say, can I make this a tournament? Is that possible? Let's find out,
Yeah, no, I think the possibilities are quite literally endless. Like I've like been a part of events myself where like I've seen what's been created in creative, and I'm like, I didn't even know this was possible. Like the limits here are like endless, quite literally. The Streamer Bowl, a lot of fun, right? Wasn't surprised to see Turner, my guy Turner, doing well. Call him Turner because first name basis.
Yeah, of course,
but
of course.
Right.
It's Tfue. Like Vivid said, he wins everything. You know what I'm saying? So obviously a great cause as well, right? I think that's the great thing. I've never been one of much of a NFL guy myself, right? But seeing those guys, doing their thing, like seeing that some of them are actually quite good. Like you almost think, those guys are going to be, just getting carried basically. But no, some of them were actually putting in a shift, so I was quite impressed.
Yeah, and talk about putting in a shift. I mean, tournament MVP, Streamer Bowl MVP, P-God. He actually came into this one looking to defend his title from the previous one. Didn't unfortunately do that. He ended up third place, but got that MVP title, which was really, really cool to see. And I really just feel like the difference maker there when it came to like P-God and how he was playing throughout that tournament was he was actually able to use those like vending machines, right? You would get coins throughout the tournament. You would get some eliminations, or when you were standing on the point, you would get coins throughout, and then you could actually purchase items. And one thing that P-God did that kind of separated him from the rest of the competition when it came to that tournament, he was always buying the shockwave grenade. So he was always able to like weave in and out. Of course, like you couldn't build in this creative game mode, but being able to have that mobility throughout any of the fights or like surprise attacks from like all the way up from the top rope, the top of the sky, seemingly falling down from the clouds and just making so many plays was really, really cool for him to be able to do that. He just found so many eliminations. And I was actually watching it, and it was really, really funny because it was like P-God and, Turner, first name basis, Turner. They were kind of like focusing each other, right? So it was like this really cool dynamic because the leaderboard was always up on their screens on the right side, so they kind of see who's in first, second, third, who was close, and like this mini battle going on amongst the game, and so it was really, really fun to watch. And then, like Zeke mentioned, for charity, of course, always a good thing.
You know what, for me, yeah, that was great. Is that like I didn't watch the event live. I went back and watched it after the fact because busy schedule and all, 2K,
Busy man,
okay,
busy man.
But when I went back and watched it, I obviously saw like who had won, and then I saw already that Igor had got an MVP, And so I was like, when a player gets MVP and they didn't win,
Yeah.
you know they went crazy. Like you just know they went crazy. And like watching the event, like he went crazy. Like props to P God, you know, top player doing his thing. So yeah, proud of what he was able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, I have to call him Tfue. We're not a first name basis. So Tfue, you know, just recently, you know, put on a little bit of $100,000 tournament for himself, right? I mean, that's pretty insane. And it's just cool, I think, kind of highlighting creative once again. You could just take people from different walks of life, you know, whether they be players who are athletes, right? Actual competitive players, you know, content creators or whatever, and then just say, hey, let's just come together. Let's just play Fortnite at the highest level just for like a little bit, you know? That's all I want.
You're not going to get the chance specifically, Zeke. Like
Not
you're
me.
not
No,
getting the
not
chance.
me.
Like you're not getting an invite anytime soon. But I do want to watch that, and it is fun, right? Like when you see like the captains get to pick their teams for these kind of events, right? Like all the crazy combinations you get. I think it's fun just from the perspective of like if you are maybe like a more hardcore competitive fan, getting to see certain players play with each other who normally don't, right? Like obviously the winning team for like Tfue's event, you know, you have Clix and Yomzo playing on the same team. That to me is like a dream come true. I want to like, yeah, I'd love to watch those guys play all the time together. So like, it was a really fun event, and I think the potential for like events like this is always going to be, you know, sky high.
Yeah, and I think the great thing about these Tfue events that I kind of run on is that he's not necessarily picking captains that are, you know, just solely competitive players, right? Like for example, we had Tim the Tatman was playing in that first one and just created so many fun moments, right? When you invite people that are kind of more like content creation based and you have more of those fun moments, right? Because competitive players, they're all just so serious, right? And they always want to win and everything like that, which is always great. But then there's funny moments as well, right? There's a bunch of plays throughout these tournaments with the Falcon Scout, right? Picking people up, taking loot from random places and flying them around. So the tournament overall has just been, you know, not only very, very from a competitive standpoint of view for Zero Build, really, really fun to watch, and it came down to the wire, but also just so many fun moments.
Look, and I feel like I was a bit too harsh on you there, Zeke. So I'm gonna wheel it back a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Turner, Tfue, if you are watching this, invite Zeke to be a captain.
Yeah.
He's gonna run up with, we should get the FNCS talent roster as a squad. And
so
we are gonna light the world on fire. That's what's gonna happen here.
You want him to be captain, so he invites you. So this is like a personal is that what you're saying?
Look, I didn't say he should invite me. If he wants, I'm not gonna say no. You know what I'm saying? But that's up to Zeke.
I see you. I see you. It
would be unwise to not pick me.
Of course.
There it is.
Of course. This is quite the clown conversation. You know, insert clown meme here. Well, gentlemen, that pretty much wraps up the drop spot here, the first one ever. It has been so much fun. I want to give you guys kind of just a chance here before we say goodbye. Any closing thoughts? Anything?
I'm looking forward to this year of competitive, whether it be, you know, the majors, whether it be third-party competitions of Streamable and Tfue Cups or whatever it is. Like, there's a lot of competitive Fortnite going on, and I'm looking forward to all of it.
Yeah, excited to whether it be competitive FNCS, whatever the content creation may be around Fortnite. Always love watching it, and honestly, after having this conversation, I'm looking forward to the NA snakening later this year. So you guys need to pay attention to that because it's always crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about it in the future for sure. Fortnite fan, thank y'all so much for listening wherever it was. We appreciate y'all so much. Remember, you can catch the FNCS in the same great place it is. And as always, see y'all on that battle bus.